call this meeting back to order. It is 9:23. We will continue on in our agenda. The next item up is 9A, new business. Discuss and consider outdoor seating in the public right-of-way and parklet program policies. Planning director is here to speak on it.
So as on the agenda, this is discuss and consider. If you'd like to discuss it for more depth, I'm happy to do so. But the general scope of this was during the last year's parklet approvals, there was a discrepancy noted in the ADA requirements of the parklet. The current policy requires ADA compliance on the parklet itself, but we had at least one parklet that was not ADA compliant. They offered ADA compliant seating outside elsewhere. So there was a request that I bring this back this year before we review the parklet approvals of next year. That is approaching rather quickly, oddly enough. So we had it in my calendar to bring it back. So with that, I reviewed them in conjunction with each other because they oftentimes come in together. The first clarification that I'm asking for your consideration on is within the outdoor seating in the public right-of-way policy. Just a clarification that this refers to temporary or seasonal outdoor seating. We do have at least two businesses, Collectivo and Stone Creek, that do have permanent outdoor seating now, and so there's a lot of questions from people saying, well, how are those treated in comparison to the policy? My understanding is the policy is for outdoor and temporary, so if someone's sitting on that permanent structure at Stone Creek, I would argue that's allowed. It's the temporary stuff that needs to be brought in per this policy. So I just want to clarify the use of any permanent structures that are out there. Those are two that I can think of, but other businesses obviously could apply for that if they wanted to as well. So the first note would be to clarify with an outdoor seating policy, it relates to temporary or seasonal, not to permanent fixtures. And then within the parklet policy itself, there's a few things. Just in reviewing the policy, I would like to consider removing ineligible locations to H and I. They're kind of confusing and redundant to me. I believe at one point they made sense. I'm not sure. If they still do, I'm happy to hear how they clarify anything, but I just feel like the eligible locations drive things. The ineligible locations shouldn't confuse that. So I would like to remove H and I from that. I also have a discussion related to whether or not we want to maintain March 15th as the opening date for the parklet season. There was one, snow incident last year. Obviously, there can be snow in April as well. So just clarifying, if the board wants to keep it at the 15th, that's completely fine. That does push forward the approvals, to coming up rather quickly. Based on the schedule of a March 15th approval, you want to have that in the board, either end of February or early March so that we can get the building permits and everything in order. So if you do want to maintain March 15th, I'll have to get the letters out probably within the next week or so to get the applications in for early January to start reviewing that. But I did also want to consider that April 1st was more amenable to the board. I think that works better for my timeline, quite honestly. But if we want to do the 15th, I'm open to it. Just noting that we do, in the new revised fee schedule, we do charge for a parklet based on its installation. So if it's out there the 15th, they'll be charged more for being out there. So people that might not want to go on the 15th, we only had one last year that wanted to be out there that soon. So I would imagine most parklets still wouldn't want to be out there that quickly. But if they do, we could keep the 15th. The next one is there was a request from at least one, if not two, parklet users. They don't like the concrete wheel stops. They are heavy and they do serve their purpose. They do break and get pushed around just the same. And they're requesting, if the board was open to it, for a durable wheel stop that cannot be pushed around. How we end up defining that, I think, would be up to the building inspector upon installation of that. They all do currently have concrete wheel stops because they've been using them this year. But at least if one, if not two of them broke and they looked unsightly, and there was a request if there could be a different wheel stop. I have no issues with that necessarily, other than it can't be pushed around. And then lastly is the one that we're probably here to discuss most, would be the parklet shall be ADA compliant with a minimum of 3-foot clearance to access the parklet from the sidewalk, and with the addition of, unless other ADA compliant outdoor seating is available at the same establishment. So that would clarify the request that if ADA compliance is available through the outdoor seating policy, the parklet could be designed to not have that 3-foot requirement. So, and then the last one I just see here now is if we do change the date to April 1st, the application that could be pushed to February 1st. That's, a lot to perhaps take in. As I mentioned, this is a discuss and consider based on how much discussion you'd like to have. I'd be happy to clarify anything that you might be thinking about.
Do you have any questions, Trustee Maher?
The ADA compliant change, have you ran that by, is that meet the ADA requirements?
I've only talked to the building inspector, and
It seemed like almost all the parklet policies had ADA accessible.
yeah, I've not had a chance to review it against, other policies and or with ADA
code for the
laws,
regs.
but based on, code for that, the building inspector indicated that it wasn't an issue. But if I could look into something more specific if you'd like me to, I did unfortunately not have the time to have that depth of research on it.
Is that what, I'm assuming as a store owner, when they need an ADA compliant counter, so the building inspector came and said, it's an inch too tall. But if you provide something that is ADA accessible, that does the same function, then that's okay. I'm assuming that's why they're okay with that language. That's the ADA law.
Yeah,
You need, if it says something like you need,
you could accommodate it somewhere then.
yeah, like as long as you have a similar providing a similar function,
Mhm.
you don't have to change that specific thing. Trustee Warren?
Oh,
Oh, yes.
I was just going to mention, my understanding, please correct me if I'm wrong, is that though this is a policy decision to make sure that the outdoor seating is also available to people with special needs. Because under the ADA, there's many ways you can get in compliance. It doesn't necessarily mean that under the ADA that the seating would necessarily have to be in a particular area as long as you accommodate it. But I think what we're saying as a village with this, if I'm understanding correctly, is that we don't want just all the ADA seating to be inside. If you're going to have outdoor seating, we would like you as a policy and as a village to make that also available so that people with special needs aren't restricted to just being inside. Is that a fair?
Correct, yep. My understanding of the direction last year was that as long as something was available outside, so that an ADA, seat was available, that was okay with the policy updates. But
Trustee Warren and then Trustee Maher? Go ahead.
I have something on a slightly different topic, I don't know.
Trustee
Maher, you just-
I'm done.
Okay, just durable wheel stops in 5I, do we want to put some discretion in there, just whether a wheel stop is durable, is at the discretion of the inspector? I mean, right now it says it doesn't really outright give you that discretion. You might want to kind of write it into that, just to make clear that you make the decision whether a wheel stop is in fact durable or not.
And I will say, these parklets do have to pass inspection before they're open through my building inspector, so my understanding would be they would look at the policy and they would be checking these things off. So whether it's specified within that particular section or not, my understanding is the building inspector inspecting it for occupancy in the spring would be looking at these things. So I don't know that it needs to be that specific, but it doesn't hurt to put it in there if that's.
If it's redundant,
Yeah.
then we don't need it, I just want to make sure.
Yeah, they definitely do inspect them to make sure they meet the policy and the building code before they go occupancy.
Okay.
Trustee Mata?
I make the same comment every time we talk about parklets, and that's, I feel that they're on public space, that we're giving up a public asset, which is a parking spot, in order for a private establishment to have additional space, and I feel that we should specify that the space is open to the public at all times, and that there should be a sign on each parklet prominently visible saying open to the public. I mean, I probably don't have 4 votes, but I'll just throw it out there.
Meaning you don't need a table.
Right, like if you just want to come and sit there and not buy anything, you should be able to do that.
Trustee.
To clarify on the phrase about, the clause about the ADA compliance, the pilot program had this language in about being ADA compliant and ADA accessible, correct?
I believe so. I wasn't here when the pilot was
Yes, it did.
Okay.
drafted.
I would not support changing that language.
I have 2 questions, or maybe 3, but going with Trustee McCabe, I fully support, as long as there's outdoor seating, whether it's on a piece of wood called a parklet or whether it's on the sidewalk, as long as there is outdoor seating, which is what a parklet is, that is ADA accessible, I think that follows traditional code enforcement of how we've interpreted ADA law for the rest of our ordinances during implementation and review by inspectors. So I'm okay with that. The time frame hasn't been talked about. I fully believe to keep them consistent between the outdoor seating and the parklet, I'd like the time to be, my preference is to be consistent. So if we're gonna push back, I mean, why would we be able to put outdoor seating out March 15th and not a parklet out till April 1st? Just keep that timing consistent. Either way is okay with me. I prefer the earlier just because I know if it is warm enough at that time, it gives the small business the extra opportunity to have those seatings available. So my preference is to keep it at March 15th, but if the board's preference is to change that to April 1st, then I would like to see them both change so they're consistent and not confusing. And my third point is I'm unclear on policy versus ordinance, and so I'm not sure why this is a policy and not an ordinance. I don't know why some things turn out to be, that would be much easier for me if it was a program, I get that, and we were adopting a pilot program for a while, but once you have it and there's specific things you need to meet by inspection, then I'm not sure why it doesn't go into ordinance. Yes, please.
Sure. Well, I mean, I guess that's up to the board. You know, the policy, they're still gonna have to come before you and seek to, technically they're granting a special privilege permit to operate in the public right of way. And so there's an approval process and there's an ordinance that governs that. And then subject to that, there's an additional policy that we're saying if you want to have a parklet, here are the requirements and all of the things that you must follow, and here are the dates and all that kind of stuff. And it makes it a little easier to be a little more responsive to needed changes and to amend the policy on the fly as you experience different conditions and from year to year while the special privilege permit that's already contained within the code is more fixed. But if you wanted to codify it and say, and added a brand new ordinance to say, well, we have this policy and we're now going to codify it, you certainly, there's no reason you can't do that. It's really just a policy decision.
And next month.
Well, there is,
Yeah, and that's okay. As we're building up our policies, number 80, what are we up to, 34, and we're going to go on. I just remember the city of Milwaukee, they codified their outdoor seating. It's not a policy, it's in the ordinance. It's just still what's allowed and what's not. So anyways, something maybe we can think about in the future as we continue down the path of adding more policies. Any other comment? No? Does anyone?
I'll move adoption of policy number 18, outdoor seating in a public way, with the amendment that on number 9, outdoor seating should be allowed between strike March 15th to April 1st and November 15th by permit.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any comments? I can't support the motion. I do believe they need to be the time.
Well, the other one is now April 1st, or both April.
Right, so then we both read
Is the outdoor seating one April 1st as of today? Without any changes?
They're both early March 15th. The only recommended change from staff was parklets for April 1st.
Right.
But if you want to keep them consistent, then
Okay, so we'll change both of them, is that what you're referencing? And does it include the changes about ADA, the language about ADA?
This is just
Just
outdoor
outdoor
seating.
seating.
Oh,
there's two separate policies for it.
okay. What about the sentence temporary or seasonal? I mean, is it with the changes?
Yeah, as proposed, but with the additional amendment to change the date from March 15th to April 1st.
Okay, any further discussion?
I
If I would make an amendment about the ADA accessibility and compliance and accessibility, would that be now?
Is it now or wherever? I think it's in the parklet.
Yeah, this is
I
just
just outdoor
apologies.
seating in the
Outdoor
front
seating.
way.
My apologies.
Thank you. So, thanks for clarifying. I still am going to vote no on the amendment, or on the motion, just because I don't see the harm in leaving it at March 15th for the businesses, and I don't know, for outdoor seating, and people want to get their chairs out as soon as there's decent weather, so.
I agree with that with such crappy weather most of the year, but you're going to take advantage of it every moment you can.
Well, I just proposed that because we wanted them both the same date.
I mean, it's, as staff, I was fine with March 15th for the outdoor seating because it's less involved. I mean, the part with the construction of something, it takes a lot of effort to get that out there. Tables and chairs are not as much, and so I had no issues with the different dates. I understand, you know, the desire to be consistent, so I have no issues if you want to push it back, but I was fine with March 15th for outdoor seating. It takes less effort to get those out there, so that was my defense of why I was okay with them being different, but
So if I was a business that had outdoor seating and a parklet, which most of them